Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We still have a few moments. Just wanted to say Shabbat Shalom. Continue to talk amongst yourselves. That's okay too. You know, this is one of the places where talking to ourselves is totally acceptable. This is right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is officially time. Shabbat Shalom to those watching and praying with us on the live stream as well. You might notice that we have Rabbi Weinberg with us. How wonderful. I am personally so grateful to Rabbi Weinberg for stepping in to help us not only lead our service, but also lead our service in song and music, lifting our voices in prayer. Marla is under the weather. Jennifer's under the weather. Multiple people are under the weather, and so we're so happy to have Rabbi Weinberg with us. We'll begin together singing a familiar melody.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. On page 11. Dodi li vanilo haroeh bashoshani. Dodi li mizot olam min hamidbar mizot olam min hamidbar. Dodi vanilo haroeh bashoshani. Dodi mekuteret mor ulevona mekuteret mor ulevona. Dodi li vanilo haroeh bashoshani. Dodi li bashoshani. Dodi
It's an honor to call now on Sharon and Harold Levine, who will come forward to light our Shabbat candles, bringing light and warmth into our sanctuary. We're on page 3 and then 2 of our Siddur.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of all the generations of Israel who have kindled lights, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
As the candles are being lit, we can reflect for each candle on the 7 days of the week that has passed, the festival week, the week of Pesach.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who has taught us the way of holiness through mitzvot and commanded us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Page 14 at the bottom of the page. La 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 Page 17, the last Hebrew paragraph. Lo mimnu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachanu behar kodesho. Lo mimnu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachanu behar kodesho. Ki kadosh Adonai Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romenu Romenu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu Behar Kodosho Romenu Adonai Eloheinu Veishtachavu Behar Kodosho. We continue on page 20. Lechaduti likatka yala 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 Shama mikadela Lechaduti likatka yala 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 Shama Shamor vezachor v'dibor echad Ishmiyanu le'elam yochad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shemo tiferet le'le'tzila Le'chadodi le'kakala Yalala 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 Shabbat Shabbat Mekabela Boi Veshalom Hateret Bala Gam Besimcha Utzola Tochem Unei Am Segula Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi, lekat kala, yalala, yalala, yalala. B'nei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi, lekat kala, yalala, yalala, yalala. Shabbat Mekabela Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Yai lai lai Yai lai lai Yai lai lai B'nei Shabbat Page 22. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat tov Adonai before lecha b'maseh yadecha aranei ma gadlu maasecha Adonai me'od ha'ameku machshevotecha mizmor shir leyom ha'shabbat tov מאוד לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. Page 26. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
בדברי חיותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל
Bagala, bagala, ובזמן קריב.
ויאמרו
Amen. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא מעלמיה, יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה
בריחו,
לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמא.
ויאמרו
Amen.
לילה 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 לילה
Please be seated. We'll pray together on page 30 in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim bechokma poteach sha'arim uvitvuna meshane itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi layla, uma'avdil bein yom uvein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך דרכך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. יארך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני Shema Yisrael Adonai Shem Kevod Malchuto
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen. This morning, at our 7th day Pesach and Yizkor services, Rabbi Weinberg beautifully chanted from Shirat Hayam, from Song of the Sea, which of course contains the words Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai, our song of redemption. It's the song that the Israelites sang as they crossed through the Sea of Reeds and reached the other side. One of my favorites, I don't know if it's a midrash or just a story about that moment of redemption when the Israelites were crossing through the sea, or that there were some people who right away realized that it was a miracle, and for others, they were so consumed with the mud that was on their shoes, the mud that was up to their knees, the gunk and the mud and the trekking through that sandy, muddy bottom of the sea, that they missed the entire miracle. I think it's that way too in our own lives, and especially when we think about the natural world. Miracles happen all of the time, all around us. Some even say that each sunrise, each sunset is a miracle, and it's for us to be aware of. This Shabbat, not only are we celebrating Shabbat and celebrating springtime and lingering for a little bit between Pesach and that period of the Omer where we count towards Shavuot, but we also celebrate Earth Day today and this Shabbat. And so I invite you to think about redemption and miracles, and that perhaps not only do they happen to us as human beings, but perhaps it's part of our human responsibility to redeem the earth as well. So we sing together our Song of Redemption, page 40.
מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ויאמרו, זה אלינו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. On page 43, let's pray together at the top. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותיו ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותיו ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותיהם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותיהם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותיהם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותיהם ברית עולם.
Let's rise, page 46.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי רבי תהילתך. אדוני Magen Avraham, Ezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Tzara V'Hoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim, V'Rofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Eminato L'Shelei Afar, Mi Chamocha Ba'al Geburot, Umidom Melach, Melech Emitum Chayei, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Ata L'Chayot HaKol, Baruch Ata Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. Ata Kadosh V'Shimcha HaKadosh, U'Kedoshim B'chol Yom Elul Chasava, Baruch Ata Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated as we continue with our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav, page 60.
Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon, Lechol HaShalom, Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon, Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael, b'chol עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. Tasim
Amen. We turn now to page 253, and there we'll find Mishaberach Lacholim, a prayer for healing. This week in particular, we pray for Sheldon Cohn, Wayne Silverman, Andrew Bider, Ronald James Sullivan, Simcha Ben Hinda, Karen Zandy, Sandy Rubin, Elise Langenfield, Diana Binder, Asher Gedalia Ben Malka, Miriam Alkabez, Harav Alana Miriam Bat Chava, Fred Siegel, Rabbi Herbert Bronstein, Laura Ifmar, Ronald Silverman, Lena Gelfand, Brooks McBurney, Yaakov Ben Zissel, Candy Siegel, Lynn Hammond, Daniel Brumar, Mina Dina Bat Elke, Erica Meyer, John Cuneo, Ione Novak, Janice Francis, William Stewart, Jamie Brook, Michelle Brand, Sydney Gross, Alan Laporte, Rachel Willens, Lisa Kane, Harav Shlomo Ben Altalea Vehillel Pesach, David Brodsky, Nolan Cody, Paula Ruttenberg, and Cynthia Roth Garfield. If I've mispronounced the names of any of these people, or if you have the name of a loved one for whom you pray for healing, I invite you to whisper their names at this time. We continue page 253. Shabbat Let's take these moments now for our own private prayers. Shabbat Shalom. I believe that by Monday, it will have been 8 weeks since Russia invaded Ukraine. In 8 weeks' time, a nation, a people's individual lives and a nation's life has been turned upside down. On Wednesday evening, I had the privilege of attending a vigil for Ukraine hosted by the Niles Township Clergy Forum here in Skokie on the Village Green. I'll make a confession. I had to call Amber and ask where the Village Green was, but she told me where the Village Green was, and I went. I have to tell you, though, that at first, to be totally honest, I was skeptical about this event. In other moments like this, and in this moment too, I find myself wondering, who is it that really benefits from these kinds of displays? How would my standing in the rain here in Skokie impact the Russian barbarity that we are witnessing in Ukraine? Would I be complicit in an act of performative activism? That is the kind of activism that succeeds only in promoting one's own social capital, rather than leading to any kind of meaningful action. Perhaps my heart was hardened, not unlike Pharaoh's, as these thoughts passed through my mind. As Wednesday evening came, I pushed my skepticism aside. I donned my rain jacket and made my way to the Village Green. Once there, I received a Ukrainian flag. And truth be told, 8 weeks ago, I wouldn't have been able to identify a Ukrainian flag. And I felt a little bit out of place waving it while knowing so little about the Ukrainian nation. As the vigil began, I listened, first to faith and political leaders from our own community, including our own Michael Lorge. All of these leaders shared messages of solidarity. And then I listened to members of the Ukrainian community here in Chicago, including Ukrainian Consul General Koledov Serahi, as they shared their experiences. While each of them expressed gratitude, sincere gratitude for what our country is doing to isolate Putin and to stop this war, they respectfully urged us to consider that what we are doing is simply not enough. Their message was straightforward and it was unified. Finally, we heard from a woman who is herself a refugee, who fled Ukraine along with her son. This woman happens to be a singer with a beautiful voice. She shared with us some brief thoughts, and then she sang 2 incredible Ukrainian folk songs. And though I certainly don't speak the language, the emotions that this woman and these songs evoked transcended any kind of language barrier. I was transported. I thought about my own family who fled Russian pogroms in search of a better life here in this country. I thought about our own people's recent history when a modern-day tyrant decided to inflict a kind of harm against our people that had previously been unimaginable. And suddenly I realized that though I know little about Ukraine and its people, I know enough about humanity to know that we should all be waving our Ukrainian flags. Because I know the heart of the refugee. The Torah reminds me of this again and again and again. And thank goodness for that, because my heart softened and I realized this vigil wasn't performative at all, it was necessary. This Shabbat is a funny week for us Reform Jews in the Jewish calendar. You see, the 7th day of Pesach ends tonight at sundown, and the rest of the Jewish world, in the diaspora at least, celebrates an 8th day of Pesach, and we sort of live in this space in between. And even if we only in usual years celebrate 7 days, there's the thing about Shabbat, and what do we do, and how do we get rid of our, how do we get our chametz back into our homes and all of that. So in addition to those issues, there's the issue of the calendar as well. While the rest of the world, the Jewish world anyway, in the diaspora, reads a Torah portion this Shabbat for the 8th day of Pesach, the Reform movement suggests that we go ahead and read the parasha from Leviticus in our weekly parshiot, our weekly Torah reading cycle called Acharei Mot. It then suggests that next week we read Acharei Mot again. Now, nothing against Acharei Mot or any of the Torah portions in Leviticus, but if we were going to pick a Torah portion to repeat, this might not be the one. So rather than doing that, rather than reading from Acharei Mot tomorrow, we're going to linger for a little bit in our Passover narrative. It is, after all, our most foundational story, as we remember that it is the very core of our faith tradition. So I'd like to invite us to dwell at the very beginning of the Exodus narrative. Pharaoh had decreed that all Israelite baby boys should be put to death. Enter 2 Hebrew midwives, Shifra and Puah. We don't know too much about them, and there's a question, what does it mean that they were Hebrew midwives? Were they themselves Hebrews, or were they midwives to the Hebrew people, to the Israelite people? Now, our ancient rabbis were uncomfortable with the notion that Shifra and Puah weren't part of the Israelite nation, so they came up with a midrash and they said that one of them was actually Miriam and the other one was actually Yocheved, and we didn't have to have help from any of these Egyptians. But I'm going to respectfully disagree with our rabbis, and I'm going to say that I believe they themselves were Egyptian midwives who served the Israelite community. These Egyptian midwives refused to follow Pharaoh's orders. They refused to kill newborn baby boys. Did they know that their actions would spark a revolution? I cannot imagine that they did. Did they know that they were doing the right thing within their own small circles of influence? Absolutely. So this Shabbat, as we linger in our memory of what it is to be liberated from Egypt, let us do what we can to stand with Ukraine. Let us continue to donate money to worthy causes, such as the funds set up by the JUF and by the World Union for Progressive Judaism, among others. Let's contribute our time and our resources to supporting a refugee family through our TBI initiative with HIAS. Let's contact our political leaders to tell them that we are paying attention and that we vehemently oppose the unprovoked Russian violence and destruction happening right now in Ukraine. Let's do whatever it is in our own circles of influence that we can to oppose this war. Let's be like Shifra and Puah, those midwives to the Hebrew people, to the Israelite people, who stood up to do what was right on behalf of a people that they themselves were not a part of. Let us linger in our own narrative and remember what it was to be enslaved and what it was to be a refugee. And let us wave our metaphorical or maybe even physical Ukrainian flags to do all that we can to oppose this war. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Let's turn back now to our Sidorim to page 278, where we will count the Omer. I'm going to invite everyone, if you can, to please rise. Hineni muchan u'mezuman l'kayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Let's read together in Hebrew and then in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitchanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom Shisha Yamim LaOmer. Today is the 6th day of the Omer. I'll invite you to remain standing as we turn to page 282 and pray together Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, v'tekedula le'otzer Bereshit, she'asa k'kibrei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, she'lo samchakenu kahem, ve'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishachavim u'modim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. יתקן עולם במלכות שדי ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. We turn to page 294 as we prepare to pray Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish. In the Shabbat, we call to mind and to heart all those dear ones who have died at the season in years past. We lovingly remember Jerry Abrams, Samuel Adler, Reuben Adler, David Adler, Isidore Adler, Abraham Adler, David Axelrod, Alexander Burnfield, Sheldon D. Cantor, Ira Diamond, Becky Diamond, Ann Drexler, Florence Lola Duxler, Leonard J. Epstein, William Feder, Harry M. Freeman, Leonard I. Fuchs, Ida Glicken, Sue Rose Goldman, Janet Goodman, Helen Charlotte Graw, Betty A. Hadesman, Hannah Hill, Dr. Benjamin Horrible, Louis Isbitz, Nelson Morris Joseph, Ida Metzger, Hyman Miller, Abraham Miska, Dorothy Oliver, Eleanor Peterson, Morris Podolsky, Samuel Polinsky, Clarence Puchalski, Anna Radowitz, Simon Safier, Esther B. Schneider, Lily G. Schwartz, Ann S. Short, Manfred Sickle, Tilly Simon, Joseph K. Smith, Paul Smith, Judith Sokol, Charles Solovey, Helen Spat, Alan Sporn, Hyman Stein, Ruth Stein, Joan Taxay, Patricia Weller, Rose Zeidman, and Suzanne Joan Zimmerman. If I've mispronounced the names of these dear people, or if you have the name of a loved one you are remembering and you wish to utter their name aloud, I invite you to do so at this time. I invite the mourners to please rise. Kaddish Yatom, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Ve'imru, 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 Amen. Ve'imru, 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 Amen. It's an honor now to call on the immediate past president of our congregation, Helene Levine.
Shabbat Shalom and happy Earth Day. Thank you to Rabbi Marks for leading us in this beautiful service, and thank you to Rabbi Weinberg for providing such lovely music. Thank you. A special thank you to Joan Hakimi in coordination with our reliable tech team headed by John Schneider and all of our TBI tech team volunteers. Torah study will be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. hybrid, available in person or on Zoom, which will be followed by Shabbat morning services at 10:30 in person or streaming. Passover has come to an end, and we as a community extend our thanks to Carol Barrington, who is truly our second Seder maven. Thank you, Carol, for all you do, and it is really appreciated by us all. Next week, we will celebrate our first Shabbat at the park, which we held at Lovelace Park in Evanston. At 5:30, our very youngest members will have Shabbat Yeladim, followed by a 6:05 service. Bring a picnic supper, and we will enjoy the springtime together. Should the weather not be great, we will be back in Mendelssohn Hall. If you are able to help load tables and chairs, please contact our Vice President of Member Services, Norwin Marins. Buona serata in Italy. It's good evening in English. Save the date for a taste of Tuscany. On Sunday, May 15th at 5:30, we will gather at TBI in person for our annual TBI Spring Gala. This year, we will be offering childcare on our second floor. Looking forward to seeing each of you here for a lovely evening, an evening truly not to be missed. For those of you planning on attending activities or services in person, please review the current COVID protocols provided in the most recent e-blast or link on ShowCloud. I'd now like to read a Shabbat thought. Think freely, practice patience, smile often, savor special moments, live God's message, make new friends, rediscover old ones, tell those you love that you do feel deeply, forget trouble, forgive an enemy, hope, grow, be crazy, count your blessings, observe miracles, make them happen, discard worry, give in, trust enough to take, and pick some flowers, share them. Keep a promise, look for rainbows. gaze at stars, and see beauty everywhere. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Helene. On behalf of the Brotherhood, you'll notice that there are yellow candles in the foyer. This is part of their Yellow Candle Project, which is a project to help us remember all of those who perished in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. Yom HaShoah, I believe, is a week from Wednesday night. We'll have an observance here in our sanctuary at 5:30 p.m. Please, though, take a candle home with you tonight so that you can participate in this important initiative. I also want to say that recently I was at the CCAR convention in San Diego. It's a conference for Reform rabbis. You can imagine how fun that is. It really was fun, though. And I have to say, I shared various meals and moments of catching up with colleagues and friends, and a number of them who also in recent years have started to step into roles like this, into solo roles or senior roles, and people were exchanging stories about this thing that their rabbi emeritus did or that thing that their rabbi emeritus did. And I just sat there very quietly with a smile on my face. And one of my colleagues turned to me and said, "So, what's going on by you?" And I said, I can't say anything. I have the best rabbi emeritus in the world. And things are just wonderful. So how lucky are we that Rabbi Weinberg at the last moment agreed to step in, not just for one service, not just for 2 services, but for 3 services, for Yizkor this morning, for Shabbat tonight, and for Shabbat tomorrow morning, even though he's retired. So thank you to Rabbi Weinberg, and thank you all for being here this Shabbat. We'll conclude our service with Kiddush on pages 4 and 5 of your Siddur, and it's an honor and a pleasure to call on Mark Fine to lead us. Please rise.
Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Voker, Yom HaShishi. And there was evening and there was morning the 6th day. The heaven and the earth were finished and all their array. On the 7th day God finished the work that God had been doing. And God ceased on the 7th day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the 7th day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, Bi'ava uvratzon hinfilanu, zikaron l'maaseh bereishit, ki hu yom tehillah lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta, Yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim b'shabbat kodshecha b'yava uvratzon hinchatanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. You too, Albert and I are looking forward to Sunday night.
That's why
Okay, good. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, everyone's good.